Start this over. Kate Vargo,
Here again.
Dan Delahunt,
Here.
John Fike,
Here.
Blake Harris, Greg Peugeot,
Here.
William Siemens.
Here.
Thank you. We've got the minutes from the February 28th meeting. What's your pleasure?
Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of last meeting.
Second?
We have a motion, and a second. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The audience out there, the four of you, this is an adjudication hearing, so if you wish to give testimony, you need to be sworn in first. So if you're going to talk, please raise your right hand. You solemnly tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. You are sworn in. Thank you. When your item is up, I need you to come forward to give testimony to the microphone. Give us your name, your address of where you live, and then whatever you want to tell us. We've got 4 items on the agenda. The 2 in the middle are the same person. Can we move those to the rear, take care of 1 and 4 first?
That's completely up to you.
I think it goes smoother, so.
Works for us.
The first item is a use variance to zoning code 1129.03 to allow the retail store and services use of the local business zoning district as regulated by the zoning code 1133.04A2 and an R2F family zoning district. We have staff's comments. Is there anything additional you wish to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This site is zoned R2F 2-family residential. To the northeast and west is also zoned R2F 2-family residential, and then to the south is zone P, auto parking. The existing use of this site is residential. The previous use of this site was both residential and business. Then the proposed use is to make it once again residential and business. This is a variance to allow a retail store and services as regulated by zoning code section 1133.04A2 on the first floor of this location. Now that is the local business stores and services part of the zoning code. As part of that code, any retail store or service must also be conducted wholly within an enclosed building, which the applicant plans on doing. The zoning code explicitly outlines the uses that would be allowed, and those uses are ones typically catered towards residents in the nearby neighborhood, such as beauty shops, the sale of art, hardware stores, and florists, etc., just to name a few. The storefront had previously been a legal non-conforming use. The space has been voluntarily vacant for more than 1 year period and thus has lost its legal non-conforming status. The space is currently not usable unless the existing residential units are expanded because the number of units is exceeding the zoning code standards as it only allows 2 units. There historically has been 3 units here, so they cannot expand and enlarge into a 4 unit. Staff believes this is a legal non-conforming number of residential units and has no concerns with the 3 units. There are approximately 5 off-street parking spaces for the entire building. Supplemental parking spaces can be found directly across the street on-street parking. The building consists of 1 empty storefront and 3 long-term residential units. Staff has determined that the site has historically functioned without additional parking since prior to 2008, which is the earliest evidence that staff could find. Staff reached out to Chief Oliver to determine if there were historically any previous parking complaints at this site. Chief Oliver had stated there had been no issues since he's been on the police force. The most strenuous parking standard for the requested uses would require 13 off-street parking spaces, and the least strenuous parking standard for the requested uses would only require 3 off-street parking spaces. Staff estimates that the existing parking areas will suffice for the applicant's needs and has determined no additional off-street parking shall be required as it had functioned historically previous to this request. The closest zoning district to the application here tonight that is zoned for business is to the west. It is LB Local Business. Staff used both the proximity and the fact that it is also the most restrictive business district in the zoning code to determine if it was an appropriate use for this variance request. Staff has determined that this is an appropriate use request for this site. Planning staff supports the requested variance at 426 Huron Avenue and suggests the following conditions upon approval. And that's that all applicable permits are obtained to the building department, engineering department, division of planning, and any other applicable agency prior to any construction or change of use. Thank you.
Just a real quick question. Are you counting the parking in the boulevard as their off-street parking?
That's correct, and my apologies. We did have a drawing submitted by the applicant that's now on the screen. So there's 3 current off-street parking spaces in the boulevard that would qualify towards this. And then also there's 2 parking spaces in the rear. There's a driveway area that's a triangular shape in the rear. And then there's about 3 on-street parking spaces, as well as the first 1, 2, 3, as it technically is on-street as it is in the public right-of-way, but it's functioned towards this site historically since 2008 and before. And there's also 3 additional on-street in the orange there. So you're looking at upwards of 8 spaces that could be used for this location.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request? If so, please come to the podium.
Hello, my name is John Shear. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the LLC that owns the building, and
What's your address? Your address.
My address
Yes.
is in North Royalton. It's 19010 North Royalton.
Just want to know where to find you.
Gotcha. And we purchased the building in early 2023 with the understanding that we'd be able to remodel it and rent it back out. We remodeled the 3 residential units. The commercial unit, we've remodeled parts of it, but we got to finish it up. We were waiting to get a renter and be able to use it for the commercial use, but we want to restore it to a storefront like it was previously used.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against this request? Seeing none, we'll go back to the board. Any questions? If none, then a motion's in order.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the variance of 426 Heron Avenue with the permits and everything recommended by the building department.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any questions on the motion? If none, if you'd call the roll, please.
Dan Delahunt,
Yes.
John Fike,
Yes.
Greg Peugeot,
Yes.
William Siemens.
Yes.
The motion has approved. Thank you. We're going to
So
jump.
we're going to 4 now?
We're going to jump ahead to the 4th item on the agenda, 1403 McDonald Street.
It's-
It's an area variance to the zoning
You know
code
what was
section
in there before.
1145.15A, to allow the construction of accessory structure in the side yard and to allow an accessory structure to exceed the 30% maximum coverage area in an R140 single-family zoning district. We have the staff's report. Do you have anything additional?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current zoning of this site is R140 Single Family Residential. The surrounding uses in north, east, south, and west are also R140 Single Family Residential. The surrounding uses of this site are residential. The existing use of this site is a church. The proposed use is staying a church. And the variance requested today are, 1, to allow an accessory structure into the side yard, and 2, to allow an accessory structure to exceed the 30% rear yard area threshold. The zone code requires that all accessory structures are permitted only in a rear yard. The applicant is in the process of adding a 20-foot by 91-foot accessory structure partially into the side yard of the existing main structure. The proposed structure is expected to be encroaching approximately 55 feet into the side yard and will have a 36-foot setback from the front property line. Accessory structures placed in the rear yard must also not exceed 30% of that rear yard area. The rear yard allowance of this site is approximately 1,050 square feet for an accessory structure if you were to only measure the backyard, and the proposed structure is 1,820 square feet. In this case, the applicant is seeking a relief of 770 square feet. The site has been operated in the past as a church use, which is a non-conforming use in this zoning district. Staff had asked the applicant to supply documentation of the most recent use of the structure in order to determine the nonconforming status. A letter explaining the continuation of a church use by the new owner was given to staff and is satisfactory. Staff has asked the applicant to update their preliminary site plan in order to provide clear, more legible information on March 5th of 2024. An updated site plan was delivered to staff on March 8th of 2024. Staff had an all-department meeting early on in March, I believe on March 5th. There was concerns originally by engineering of runoff. I believe that's all been taken care of, but just to put on the record, there was concerns of making sure the water, as far as the downspout's concerned, is pointed away from the southerly residential house. And based on that information, planning staff is not opposed to the variance requested at 1403 McDonough Street, but it suggests the following upon approval. That's one, that all applicable permits must be obtained through the building department, engineering department, division of planning, and any other applicable agency prior to any construction of this accessory structure. And two, that water runoff onto neighboring properties is avoided. Thank you.
Okay, we have, I guess, get back where I was thinking. Anyone in favor of which this request would please report?
Hi, I'm Sandy Miller, and I am a native Sanduskyan, but I've lived in Bowling Green for the last 30-some years, and now I'm back to Sandusky. And I just gave Alex some plans here that maybe you saw some pictures. I'm really big about community and trying to make things better. So what I'm asking for is a pretty big structure, and it will have 8 doors on it. It will have like 8 different garage doors, but it won't be anything that would ever go for anybody else to use. I'm looking at, it's zoned residential right now, so I would like the top to be a duplex possibly upstairs, and then the bottom would still stay a church/community type. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but I want to really make this something nice for the community, like maybe something affordable where community members can have a church or can have a wedding or some kind of venue, something like that. And then there's an area in the back that there's a little banquet hall. I just want to really make this something nice for the community. And the reason I want the structure there is if I rent the top out, I'm guessing maybe 3 or 4 of the stalls will be for the people that would live up in the top structure. And then if I open things up to the community, you know, the old Osborne School is going to have something for seniors, and maybe we could have some senior exercising classes or in you know, the community room. And a friend of mine is a dietitian, and she wants to have some classes there. Another friend does things with art, and we just really want to make this something that would be really nice for Sandusky. When I first bought it, somebody came and looked at it and said, oh, you could do sober living here. You could make a lot of money. And I said, you know, as a neighbor, I don't think I would want that. And he said, screw the neighbors. And I said, no, that's not the way I operate. I don't care. My thing is not to make money and make as much money as I can. It's a nice community thing. And I sent some pictures around, and I just wanted to show you a couple of the properties that I bought in recent years and just what I did with those, because this is what I do. I'm really big on making things look better. And sometimes I think that's a detriment because I have this passion that I don't know why I buy properties, but I buy them and then I figure out what I'm going to do. But whatever I do is to make them look nicer. And you can see one of the pictures has a bow window in there. So I already have something into the building department for the building permit to have the bow window put in the front. And my nickname for the building right now is Big Ugly, but it's not going to be big and ugly pretty soon. It's going to have new siding. I'm going to put a new roof on. I'm going to put a nice bow window in front and landscape around it. And it's going to be an asset to Sandusky instead of an eyesore. And by allowing me to have this storage. I can, keep my equipment in there and the other stalls, keep equipment and stuff for the church, like if I have to take benches out, the church benches, the tables and chairs, exercise equipment, things like that. And then my own storage things for, making the place nicer.
Okay, thank you. Your present address of where you live?
1204 Central Ave, so right around the corner. I just block and a half away from the structure.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who's wish to speak in favor of this request? Does anyone wish to speak against this request? Okay, we're back. Questions from the board?
I saw there were a couple of notes from neighbors saying that they're not opposed to this. Are they the two neighbors that would be closest to this structure?
Here's a neighbor that's closest to the structure.
Thanks.
My name is Denise Hellman. I'm at 1409 McDonough Street. I would be the one to the south, and this structure will run the length of my house. As long as I have enough room to wash windows, I am not opposed to the structure running alongside my home.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And that seems to be the closest structure. How about the other one that's perpendicular? Any word from them? It would seem runoff would impact both properties if not done correctly.
The one to the west.
Yes.
I guess not.
They may have emailed you just recently, because I got a text from them and said that they asked me if they could still send an email.
No, I see Denise Howman, who we just heard from, Carolyn Springer.
It's in Ruby, but I don't know what their last name is. And there's a statement from Joy that was on the top of the pages that I just submitted, that she lives across the street, and so she wrote she was in favor.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
But I did talk to the neighbors that are on the west side, and I went over there this morning, and they said they have no opposition whatsoever. And the daughter just texted me when I was in the meeting to say, hey, do you still want me to write something? So.
Thanks.
And for the record, we received this letter from Joyce Crosby in favor of the project.
Great.
Dr. Stevens.
Obviously, we were just addressing the accessory building. Could staff comment on usage of the main building?
Absolutely, through the chair to Dr. Siemens. So currently, the use is a church, it's ongoing, they're practicing. Now, if anything were to expand beyond what the Public Facilities District, which is the non-conforming use, those standards apply as a non-conforming use. Now, if whatever those accessory uses that the code calls out, those are the ones that would be directly allowed here. Now, if there's an accessory use to the church use that wouldn't be allowed, then we'd have to get a use variance. And given that this structure is historically, and I can't tell you when it shut down and was converted to a church completely, but in the mid-century of the 20th century, this was a corner store. This was a business building on the first floor of the structure. So just a quick analysis, I personally would say that it's not out of line to allow a use variance if that were to come about, as it functioned historically as a business on the first floor.
Thank you.
Mr.
You're
Chairman. Yeah, excuse me. It looks like a great project, but is this getting approved then with the variance as a church? Because you mentioned that you possibly could have living quarters above the building. Does that present a problem? Will she have to come back?
Based on the current zoning standards, it would not be a problem as long as it doesn't exceed the one residential unit.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, the location of the building, the setback is what, is it 5 feet or 3 feet?
So, yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chairman. So the south and also the west setback are going to be both 5 feet from the property lines.
They're also, if they're close to residence, they've got to be 15 feet from the house?
That's correct, yep.
Okay, can we, I mean, I've got a drawing here, not to scale, and what I'm concerned with is if the pins aren't marked, that we might not get this in the right spot, might not be 15 feet from both directions. Can we request this to be surveyed and a surveyor place the storage building where it needs to be?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to refer to the applicant on that. I believe a survey was done. I don't,
Yes, it was done, and I did a lot combination, because when I bought the property, it was 3 separate lots. And when I went to the building inspectors, they were thinking that was my backyard too, instead of my side yard. And so they advised me to combine the lots. So I did combine the lots and paid and had a survey done when I had the lot combination done.
Okay, the pins exist then, the
Yes.
corner pins?
Yes.
Okay, well, again, my concern is that even though she's your neighbor and she's happy right now, is that, you know, next week she could sell the house and the next person may not be. I'd like to make sure that the back of your storage building and the side is 15 feet from the neighbor's houses, which is what zoning code requires.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
But,
That's from the lot line?
Pardon?
Is that from the lot line?
That's 15 feet from the house. I
Yeah, but is that 5 feet? 5
They're
feet
showing
to-
5 feet from the property line, but
That's what I mean.
the house
Is essentially on the
is
property line.
really
is it?
close
Okay.
there. And the one to the west is, there's a driveway, which is about 8 foot wide. So we'd need to be like at least 7 feet from that side. Not that it won't fit, it will. Just
Right.
want to make sure that
It does.
it does. We don't
Properly.
allow it to be plunked down there. We stay with 5 feet, and it turns out it should have been 10 or
Agreed.
greater.
Mr. Chairman, I may, there's a few options, and my apologies. When I initially reviewed this, I didn't see an issue, but I'm glad you brought this point up, because I think there could be a real conversation that was missed. There's 2 options we could do to go forward. One is you could require the variance to have a larger setback on that south property line as part of the approval process. The second item we could do is to add a third item to this agenda of this property, and I can give you the zoning code section if that's the route you want to take, and it'll be a third variance that you can approve tonight.
Thoughts, gentlemen?
What was the last part of that again? The what?
So if you go with the second option I gave, I can give the zoning code number. We could add a third item to the agenda in front of you for this property, and then we can add a third item for you to vote on separately from the other 2 to allow the 15-foot setback, or less than a 15-foot setback to a neighboring main structure. So the first option I gave, you can require what the board would feel is comfortable, whether it be 10 feet instead of 5 feet, or if you want the full 15 feet, that's another option you could do.
I prefer, just because it looks like the house to the south is really tight in there, is that we stay with the 15 feet. I have no problem with 15 feet, just want to make sure, the drawing here says 5. Just want to make sure that it's actually built 15 feet from both the south and the west houses.
Understood, thank you.
So what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, is that they'd have to bump that out 10 more feet if there's 5 feet from the building to the property line?
Whatever it is to meet the
Right, to
present
meet the
zoning code, could be
code.
15 feet from the house.
There are 2 lines on that drawing, and the 5 feet refers to like the dashed line, and then there's another line that seems to be the line for the actual house. So I assume there's more than 5 feet there. You kind of look,
I
if you
would
look really
get-
close.
Well, I would guess that the 5 feet is what she's allowing to the property line.
Yep,
And
And
I'm
then-
just saying is if there's 3 feet,
then
To
you're
the
still got to
house.
go 7 more.
we got to go 7 more.
Yep.
Whatever it is. And if the pins are in, it should be easy to figure out where it is, so.
Mhm. That makes sense for me.
So we wouldn't, I just want to make sure that
Wouldn't need
the
another
applicant's
variance.
aware that it's 15 feet
Mhm.
and that it's built that way. We wouldn't have to give a variance then, it just stay with the ones that's requested.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the variance as presented to us, and assuming that all other zoning code parameters are met.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion?
So by approving this, we really don't know if they're away from the line. Is that,
We're requesting that it be
well,
that
that's
way.
part of the,
We're just saying that follow the code. The code says 15
Okay.
feet from the house and whatever that is, so that'd be up to, after we pass up to the building department to make sure that it, because I don't know that the drawing that I see there is adequate for building department use.
I would agree, based on what I'm seeing as well. There's been several alterations to the site plan, so my apologies. I believe originally there wasn't an issue, and now that, this was given to staff 2-3 weeks ago as an updated, clearer version. So now I'm thank you for clearing that up.
Do you understand what we're doing? Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, you call the roll, please?
Dan Delahunt.
yes.
John Fike.
Yes.
Greg Peugeot.
Yes.
William Siemens.
Yes.
The variances are approved.
And good luck with that project. It should help the neighborhood.
The neighborhood could use it.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is 1137 Cedar Point Road, an area variance to zoning code section 1145.15A to allow the construction of an accessory structure in the side yard of an R175 single-family zoning district. I have to abstain. So my discussion here be just as representing the owner. I would prefer that Dr. Seaman, as the vice chair, take over.
Very good. I'll be happy to, because I don't see anybody in the audience who's willing to speak for or against this variance. We got staff report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. This property is zoned R175 Single Family Residential. All surrounding properties are also zoned R175 Single Family Residential. Existing use of this site is residential. The surrounding uses are residential, and the proposed use is staying residential. The variance requested today is to allow an accessory structure into the side yard. The applicant is currently in the pre-process of replacing an existing structure into the side yard. The proposed structure will be a 26 by 31 foot accessory structure into most of the side yard. The existing structure is being rebuilt, as there currently is an accessory structure in the side yard today. The zoning code states that if there's an expansion or a new build, the existing structure would not comply and therefore would, or the new structure would not comply and therefore would require a variance. The zoning code requires that only accessory structures are allowed in the rear yard. The variance sought for this property would result in a built condition that fits the larger character of the parcel and also the neighborhood. The side parcel of the residential structure, where the accessory structure is proposed to be built, has a 75-foot side yard setback from the house, I believe. The two-story structure is appropriate in this case as it closely matches the height of the existing home and does not impede on lakefront views on the north side of Cedar Point Road. The backyard is totaled at approximately 11,500 square feet, which would allow 3,450 square feet for accessory structures. This structure is well under that requirement. Staff supports the requested variance at 1137 Cedar Point Road and suggests the following upon approval, and that's that all applicable permits must be obtained to the Building Department, Engineering Department, Division of Planning, and any other applicable agency prior to any construction. Thank you.
Just real quick, there is a garage there now, but the floor level is below floodplain. It has
To
been,
this building.
that's correct. It has been flooded in the past. Actually, that garage used to have a big boathouse going out the back also. That was, I think in the early floods, got destroyed and was not replaced. His intent is to tear the garage down, build a new garage on the same footprint, but add a one-car garage towards the street, which makes it bigger footprint. He also wants to make the new garage look more like his house.
So that's this.
That's correct. And since it'd be torn down anew, then it has to be built back to meet floodplain requirements. So, in a nutshell, that's what it is.
So how much do you have to, what's the elevation change? How much you gonna have to bring it up?
About 2 feet. I remember, I used to live next door to this
Right.
house, so our house next door was much higher, and everything, it was probably a 3 or 4 foot drop off to that house, which it doesn't exist anymore. When McGookies bought the property, they tore everything down, they
Right.
leveled the yard, but built their house up, so it actually doesn't look as bad as it used to, height-wise.
You were up in the air there, Brian.
Yeah.
So seeing nobody else to speak in favor or against this, board have any questions for staff or for Mr. Fike?
Mr. Vice Chairman, I would like to just clear one comment I made from the staff report. As I'm rethinking about it, it may not made a lot of sense. So the 75-foot side yard setback is from the main structure. That being said, it has a very long but narrow backyard, which would highly restrict any accessory structures from being built only in the backyard. So in that case, as part of the staff report, staff has determined that it is appropriate to be in the side yard due to the unique circumstances of the very narrow backyard and the very large side yard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman. John, is it on one lot? Did they
It used to
switch?
be
It used
3 lots.
3? So it's on one now?
Now it's all one lot.
Okay.
That was way back,
Right.
about 1950,
And it was all chopped up.
yeah.
Any further questions?
Just across the street, I've seen that gazebo there. Is that essentially the footprint for what that 26 by 31 foot new beach house structure?
That's the next,
That will be that's
Oh,
our
that's
next
the next one?
item. on the
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, the
there's
garage-
supplemental information, since there's two
Got it.
sides of the street that they own. I'm
Okay.
just trying to give you the whole scope of the
Yeah,
property.
Garage makes sense to me. No further questions about that.
Okay. Let's finish our work on this application. It's your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we accept as presented.
Second.
Roll, please.
Dan Delahunt,
Yes.
Mr. Fike, Greg Peugeot,
Yes.
William Siemens.
Yes. So that's approved. The second application is for a variance to allow an accessory structure in the front yard. Staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is the same property in question, so I'll briefly just reiterate. It is zoned R175. All surrounding uses are the same residential. The surrounding zoning is all the same R175. Instead of a side yard for an accessory structure as the previous application, this application is for an accessory structure into the front yard, which is on the easterly side of Cedar Point Road on the water side. If you look at both the left image, which is the aerial of the existing footprint of the gazebo and porch area, and then the bottom right picture is the street view. The applicant is in the pre-process of replacing these structures with a built accessory structure on Cedar Point Road. Currently, Cedar Point Road separates the house that the parcel sits and the Lakewards parcel. The proposed structure would be a beach house on the lakefront. I believe it's 26 by 31 on the secondary parcel. It would be a one-story structure with an average height below the 15-foot average height requirement. The zoning code requires that all accessory structures only be permitted in the rear yard, and that any accessory structure permitted elsewhere through variance must also meet the 3-foot setback standard. And so this is a variance request for the front yard. It would result in a built condition that also fits into the neighborhood. There are more than a dozen, if not more, structures that have been built through variance requests on the easterly side of Cedar Point Road on the waterfront. Staff has observed, just through research and files, historically, the ones I pulled about a dozen About half a dozen I've fully reviewed, and of those half a dozen, I found one that was partially approved, and that was only because the height of the structure exceeded 2 stories. That was the part of the variance request that was denied. The structure itself, as long as it was 1 story and the placement in the front yard, was approved. So every file I've pulled, and I'm not saying that's every single one that's been approved or reviewed, I personally, all of them have been approved. So given the large parcel of this one, I know we had a case last month of a very similar, if not the same request. The difference in this case is the front yard parcel is a lot larger. There's a 64.5 foot setback from the water property line, excuse me. There's over 12 feet from the property line of the road to the structure, and then both side yard setbacks are 50 foot plus. So it's a little bit different situation here, a lot larger parcel, a lot larger setback, and it has obviously a bigger building. But based on that information, planning staff reports this requested variance and suggests the following conditions upon approval. That's that all applicable permits are obtained through the building department, engineering department, division of planning, and any other applicable agency prior to any construction. Thank you.
Thank you. To speak for, do you have anything for us,
Yeah,
Mr.
real
Fike?
quick, one of the things, only because the way Cedar Point is and the way these things on that side are, we did have the property surveyed because we want to make sure that it goes where it needs to be. The existing gazebo that's there will come down, and this goes almost in the exact same spot. We're showing it 12 feet from the right-of-way, but it's going to be almost 30 feet from the edge of the road. So it's going to be way back, which is, to me, for sight lines of driving and safety over there, the further we can get it back, the it is. Again, it's 1 story. It'll have a deck on it that'll be covered. The owners really would like to make it, again, look very similar to their garage, which is going to look like their house. So not a whole lot more I can tell you. It will be out of the flood zone. It'll be a lot higher because of the height of the dune that's over there. That's all.
Thank you. Board have any questions for staff or for Mr. Fike?
Just that there are plenty of very elaborate beach houses on that side of the road, and I think a lot of them are much higher than this one, so I think that it probably fit in pretty well.
It seems to me that when we did deny one of the, and I believe it was 2 stories, we were also a slight concern that it was not going to be an inhabitable building. So we just want to make sure that
Yes.
the owners would know that, if this were to pass.
Well, I've told them, I said, number one, that because of what it is, if someone's going to be spending nights in there, you will get turned in. It's
Very good.
And he just says, well, it's going to be open, so if someone's sleeping in there, it's going to be, everybody's going to see you. And I told him also, it's going to be fairly expensive, because if you want to put, sewer and water over there, you're going to have to go under the road.
So he's not putting any utilities in there?
He's going to.
Yeah.
It's his
He's got
idea.
shower and
Shower,
toilet.
Right.
bathroom, a little kitchen sink. I mean, he wants to make it elaborate, but I just said, well, you got to bring everything over underground.
Right.
So, and I haven't done the structure yet, but somehow or other, we got to get that thing so that when we get the high waters again in 2,
Which
3,
will
4
happen.
years, whenever it is, which we know is coming eventually, that it's still there when it's all said and done, or at least if it's 20 years from now, I won't care.
Any further questions?
No.
Not-
And I'd make a motion to approve the variance to allow the accessory structure in the front yard as proposed.
And I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Delahine?
Yes.
Mr. Fike?
I abstain.
Mr. Pajot?
Yes.
Mr. Siemens?
Yes.
That's approved. And any further business for the?
No business for tonight's meeting. We will have a meeting next month. So mark your calendars.
Great.
Do you know if you're
Right
scheduled?
now, I think I'm going to be
You're
here.
going to be here? Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. When is,
Can't leave you guys hanging.
when is it
Thank
next
you.
month? I got it. I know I have some out-of-town trip.
So next month will be the 18th of April.
I bet it does. That's true dedication.
Yeah.
It should be okay. The next week I know is bad. There's just some possibilities with that being
Is
bad.
that the good pen?
Thank you. Have we adjourned officially?
Motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second?
You just didn't want to give
Aye.
up the power, did you, Bill?
No, that wasn't it.
Looked pretty good as the
He's pretty
president.
good at this.
Yeah.
He could take
Yeah.
over.